Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Time to Thrive podcast. We are so glad that y'all have joined us again today for the month of patience that we're going through. So today we have our couple who's going to be joining us, going through some questions, doing a little icebreaker game, and then we're going to jump on into it. So we have Mr. and Mrs. Amy and David Miller with us today, and we're just going to go ahead and jump straight into it, ask some questions, and thank y'all again for being here. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. So our icebreaker question for today is, if you could achieve something or experience something in your lifetime, what would it be? It can literally be anything. It could be career-wise. It could be personal, family, literally anything.
And all of us are answering it,
Yeah.
right? Okay. I was trying
Do you
to
wanna
think
do
of
yours
mine.
first?
I know. No.
You mentioned it
No, I was
before.
trying to think of
Was that
something
a
else.
Okay. I can do mine first because I know mine. Ever since I was little, I've always wanted to be a mom, so that's like number one on my list.
Yeah.
But then I also really want to own my own hair salon one day, and then eventually even do wedding hair full time.
Nice.
That's a great goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice.
You don't know yours?
I know mine, but compared to being a mom,
Just say it. But we have different personalities.
That's
so
true.
Just say it.
mine would probably be going to Africa and then going on a safari in like
Yeah.
what is it called? Hot air balloon. That's actually called a dirigible. Actually, a hot air balloon is called a dirigible. Yeah, but going that, like going to
Is that
safari.
just in Africa or what? Is
I don't
that?
know. I don't know. My aunt always said that's what it's called, so it may not be called that. But go to Africa and go on a safari and like be in the culture and stuff. I would
Yeah,
love
that'd
to
be
go
cool.
there.
That
Yeah.
sounds amazing.
That's
It
a
would
big
be
dream.
fun.
I like that.
Yeah.
Mine involves
Yeah.
travel too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There we go.
It's pretty simple, but I'd love to knock off all the Disney parks.
Oh,
That would be
that's
cool.
nice.
Everyone.
That'd be
Yeah.
fun.
Don't know if it'll happen, but we'll see.
How many
Yeah.
more do you have left?
Oh, I've only been to one.
Oh,
I've
really?
just been to Florida.
Just been to
Aw.
Florida.
But we are going to Paris.
I do have
Oh.
Disneyland Paris on the
Disneyland Paris this
list,
summer.
so
Aw.
we're starting from the
That'll be
bottom
fun.
here.
That'll
There
be
we go.
so
That's
cool.
fun. Though.
Yeah.
That's fun. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And mine's travel too. I should have said mine first, but they did an around the world cruise last year.
I've
and
heard of
I want
that.
to do that so bad.
Yeah. That
I don't
is
know if I
nice.
can stay on a cruise boat that long, but I'd like
How
to give
long
it a
is
try.
it?
Like how many days was it?
I'm
Like
drawing a blank.
8 or 9 months.
It was
It was
nine months.
It's a long
Wow.
time.
Oh, wow.
It was 9
Oh.
months. Yeah.
But I'd like to try that.
It was 60 some countries.
Oh, wow.
Sign me up.
So cool.
Yeah.
Take my
Sign
money.
me
That
up.
would be fun. That would be fun.
Yeah.
I've never been on a cruise.
I want to so bad.
Yeah.
They say when you see Titanic, you don't want to, but I haven't even seen Titanic.
Yeah,
so.
don't watch Titanic and then
Okay,
go
I
on a
will.
cruise.
Just don't
Or The
go
Perfect
cruising.
Storm
Don't go on
or
a
any of
cruise
those
in the
movies,
Arctic.
no.
That's
Yeah,
the problem.
That's true. That is
yeah,
true.
just go in warm water. You're good.
That's true. That'll be good. Alrighty. So now jumping into the questions that we have, we're gonna start with our first one. So this is for you. Oh, I know actually this is for both of y'all. We have the how did y'all meet, and then where did y'all's relationship begin?
It's a little bit of a fun story.
Yeah, a little bit. I was 17,
Yeah.
senior in high school. David was in his first year of college
Yep.
at Rowan Cabarrus,
Yeah.
and take it from here.
Oh, you want me to do
Go
it for me?
ahead.
Okay. So we had, I guess as a freshman, you take freshman English and all the freshman classes. And anyway, there was a project that we had that you had to kind of pair off in class with different people. And you had to do interviews, kind of like this, I guess, a little bit. And then you had to take that information, write a paper or whatever. So anyway, her sister was in that class. And so I paired up with Amanda. And, you're asking, all the kid questions of like, what's your favorite book? Or like, just all the weird stuff. And she said, the Bible. And I was like, okay, this is interesting.
Yeah.
And then, of course, at the end, you're working through 10 or 15 questions. And I was like, do you have a boyfriend? Like, just all that kind of stuff. And she had, at that time, had been dating somebody for a long time. And we had other things that we were talking about through that project. And she said, yeah, I got a boyfriend of 5 years, but I do have a sister
Aw.
that's single. And I was like, I don't know about blind dates. I don't know about all that. But I said, will you bring a picture?
Before social media.
Yeah, this is a
Like,
long time ago, guys.
A real blind
It's like an
date.
ancient
That's why you
days with
said bring a
rotary phones.
picture, yeah.
yeah. When you had to rewind your VHS tape at Blockbuster
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So anyway, she brought a picture of Amy, and of course she She looked great. She looked so great.
Oh.
So she also worked at Gap back in the day, and so I kind of, you bring a picture, and I was like, oh, is that like, is this like glamour shot? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
So I kind of made a drive-by past the Gap to verify.
Oh.
And of course, she looked awesome. I remember what she wore that day still.
Aw.
And,
I guess
so
he
anyway,
was going to stay me up if you did. Like what
So
you
we went to
saw.
O'Charlie's on our first blind date,
that's
and now it's
cute.
closed.
Oh,
Closed it.
Did close.
Man,
Aw.
so that's how we met on a
That's
blind
sweet.
date.
I guess
That's
that was
cute.
like 20-some years ago.
Yeah.
I don't remember, but it was a while ago.
Were you nervous about going? Like,
Oh,
were you
yeah.
like, oh gosh, this
He was
random-
my first boyfriend,
Aw.
so
That's sweet.
I was very nervous.
Yeah.
And I wasn't allowed to date till I was 16. I had just turned 17, so everything was really, really fresh.
That's funny.
So,
Good experience.
Yeah.
That's
I had to meet her
cute.
mom in the parking deck at Carolina Mall before I could take
Oh,
her out.
gosh.
Yeah, I wasn't allowed to date anybody until they met the
all the
parents.
traditional
Oh,
things.
yeah.
It was fun.
But it was so late, so it worked out.
Yeah.
Aw.
So met on a blind date.
Yeah.
That's cute. That's sweet.
A little sweet, a little cringy.
No. Cute.
Okay, so moving on. This question's more geared for you, Amy, but you both can answer.
Okay.
Have you seen patients transform parts of your marriage, and if so, in what ways?
How much time do we have?
You share
You're
however much
good.
you
How
want.
much patience do you have?
How much patience? Yeah, how much patience do you have? So patience. I think this question caused me to think back to, like I said, I was 17. He was 18 when we met. We got married. I just turned 22 and 23, so we didn't feel like it at the time, but we were children. Yeah, I would definitely say it was something at the beginning of our marriage we were both lacking. It grew within both of us over the years. I think I came across looking like I had more patience because just being the girl and the female, just a little calmer, things like that. But I had a lot of unhealthy coping mechanisms. So I would say early in our marriage, so if something were to come up, it would have looked like me shutting down, silent treatment, slow processor, David being like, no, we're handling this now. So on the outside looking in, it would look as if, oh, well, David's the one lacking patience. I have patience. I'm more quiet. But that was more of a pseudo patience for sure because I wasn't dealing. Since then, I think he was here, I was here. We've grown together
Come together. Yeah.
in a lot of ways. And we have a lot of tools that have helped with that.
Yeah.
The number one thing I think that's helped, well, two things I can think of. One is a phrase that we adopted in our marriage years and years and years ago, and it has stuck. I say it all the time. I say it to the kids. David and I will remind each other of this, is tenderness to weakness. And that has meant so much to me and you.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a little thing, like, hey, be tender to my weakness here. And it just is like a pause. Like, hey, take a breath, I need a minute. And it's meant a lot. And, nowhere, who gave us the best example of tenderness to weakness is the Lord. Example after example we read of how he had compassion and had tenderness to weakness. And that's patience. And it's definitely something supernatural. It's not, does not come naturally.
Well, it's a fruit of the spirit too.
It is
something that
definitely
doesn't
part of
come
the
in our
fruit of the
flesh,
spirit.
right?
It's the opposite of what we feel like doing. And the second thing would definitely be marriage counseling. We started marriage counseling probably close to 8 years ago now, and we still keep it up. We go every month, and we'll probably continue to always go.
Well, we had things we just didn't, patience doesn't come naturally for people. I think just in general, if it's something that did, it wouldn't be a fruit of the spirit that God knew we needed with the help of the Holy Spirit, so it's something that's supernatural and that think the more that we've experienced, the Lord's patience with us, then we can then pass that on to other people, especially the ones that we love, which is honestly, man, it's hard to be patient with the people that are like close in your life, like your kids or your siblings or, whoever you're in close relationship with. Sometimes it's super hard to be patient with those people probably the most.
Yeah, and I think too, I know for me, and for you too, I can speak for you too on this. Going into marriage, we weren't prepared or had a realistic view of how much patience it took.
Yeah.
I think in Christian culture and growing up in the church, you are taught patience in so many ways, and it is something that's developed and cherished, and I'm thankful for that. But as far as in a marriage setting, a lot of times it gets a little taken lightly. We use examples with each other, like, oh, we fought in the car on the way to church this morning, or he didn't pick up his socks and I had to have patience, and it just kind of romanticizing that, and it's like, that sounds nice, and all those things are true, and you do need patience for picking up his socks on the floor when he doesn't, or whatever. But I think where the real growth and maturity is when things come up, and they will, of things that really require you to say, whoa, I did not have patience for this. This person, this human, really just let me down. He is not who I thought he was, or she is not who I thought she was. He was not who I thought what a good husband should be, or
just disappointment.
True disappointment.
Yeah.
And that's when you realize really quick, Lord, I need some patience, some real patience.
Well, nothing will grow you up quite like a marriage. Will challenge you as to who you
kids.
are. Kids will, which is So
for sure. So, but having tenderness to weakness and realizing that he's human and I'm human.
Well, we also struggle to see people the way that God sees them. I think that's another big part of, like, you can tap into patience if I can see this person and their weakness. A homeless person, for example, you don't know their story, you don't know the trauma that they've been through, the mental health issue. I mean, we just don't know that. But if I'm in a conflict or in a situation where I'm really struggling to be patient, I come back to the place of, like, Lord, help me to see people the way that you see them. And I can kind of push past the way that I kind of want to react, and then I can slow down enough to be able to respond as best I can, like he would. And that's really hard when you're fighting, or you're dealing with a disappointment or something that's super frustrating or whatever. You have to always come back to that. And I think that's a healthy thing that we've learned over the years. That helps you be more patient over time. So
I think that's a big thing too, of like, when there are disagreements, whether it is in a marriage or just like you said with homeless people, or things that causes you to just look at that person like on the outside of who they are. Like, it really, you have to stop and be like, I've said this, me and Haelle have had this conversation before. It's like, it's so easy to like associate the name with the person and be like, okay, well, so and so did this, therefore I'm gonna act this way towards this person. It's like, if you're able to like take that name out of it, and just look at them as, this is a person created in the image of God.
right.
Like, they're human. How is my response? So, how is this an opportunity that I can glorify the Lord right now through that? And it definitely takes you back and makes you step back and be like, oh, I'm the exact same. Like, I would want someone to not look at me for my situation or the way I'm acting right now, but look at me for, yes, I am someone made in the image of God. And it really makes you step back. And I'm sure, like, in a marriage too, I'm sure it is hard, because with the people that you're closest to is the hardest. Like, for me, it was my parents. Like,
right.
Like, patience with my parents, like, that was the biggest thing. And like, I was still a kid, but like, just growing in that, and it was like, why is it people you're closest to you have the hardest time having patience with? And it's like, most of the times those are the people that are like the ones who are supporting you the most and you're around the most. So like, having patience with them grows you to have patience with the homeless person, with the other. But like, that's, you have to grow in that. You don't just learn that.
Yeah, you
because it
got to
doesn't
seek
come
after
naturally.
that.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a discipline a little bit too.
It
It's something
is.
that you choose.
Yeah.
You know, it's not something that you just. I mean, we're talking like spiritually. You know, we're talking about spiritual this and seeing things the way God. But when you're in it,
Yeah.
you know, when you're in that, and I'm pushing her buttons, and I'm really, like, it's really hard to kind of then tap into like, Lord, help me with it's. You know, it's hard practically to let that play out.
Yeah.
And one thing that we've also learned about patience is when we're wrong, we promptly admit that and just say, hey, I messed up, you know, and I didn't respond in a patient way that I wanted. I mean, I had to do something like that today, where it's like, no, this is not, I didn't react the way that I wanted to react. Let me back up.
Yeah.
And let's start over. And this is truly who I am. This is who I want to be. And then on the times that we mess up, and it's hard because you feed off each other so easily, like, because I know the things that push her buttons and she knows the things that push my buttons, and then being able to, somebody's got to be able to say, you know, no, I'm not going to react like that. I'm going to be patient. I'm going to react the way the Lord would want me to, and then kind of break the cycle of, otherwise we could take it. That's why you don't let the sun go down on your wrath kind of things. You know, you want to try and work towards some type of resolution, I
Yeah.
guess. But anyway.
Yeah, I think also when you allow the Lord to develop patience in you, and it is such a long process.
Yeah.
When you take that on as your identity and you get in these situations, and if you're able to pause, and a kind of a tool in my tool belt I use is, I ask myself, what is it like for me to do in this situation? Like, who am I? How does the Lord see me? Am I attuned with Him? And am I reacting in a way that's literally flowing through me?
Yeah.
And if those things line up, then you're probably going to see some patience. If they don't, then not to go to a place of shame of, well, I blew it again, might as well, whatever.
Yeah.
He's already mad. You know, to go there so quickly, but to catch it, and then to come back quickly to the Lord and be able to say, Lord, you know, this isn't, I don't like who I am right now. I don't like how this feels. You know, remind me of how you see me,
Yeah.
and allow me to show that to my husband
Yeah.
or my kids or
whoever.
whatever.
Yeah.
So it can be a bumpy process.
Yeah. So you kind of alluded to this already. You can answer this one, Mr. David, or y'all again can answer it together. So what practices or habits have you developed together in your marriage that has helped foster patience?
Yeah. Amy talked about the tenderness to weakness thing, and I can't
Number
say
one.
that enough. That was pretty it was a big game changer in our relationship when we tried to figure out how do we engage the icky parts of each other. But more practically, I mean, some things that we've learned, and this is coming, I mean, we're big advocates for marriage counseling. Just we think it's great. Even if you don't have a problem in your marriage, you should go before you have a big problem in your marriage. So, but, you know, we were taught tools about, like, you know, one of the most frustrating, and I go to like the opposite. You know, if I'm not being patient, then I'm impatient. You know, and if you're wondering, like, am I a patient person or not? You know, maybe ask Haley, and you know, am I a patient person? Or the people closest to you, do you think I'm patient? And they may say, well, you're pretty impatient. This is how you act. And you get an accurate reflection if people are willing to be honest with you. And you want to know.
Yeah.
But to say, you know, we were missing each other in communication, and maybe Barry and his wife can speak more to this, but we were, one of the most things that made me impatient or frustrated in our marriage is when I would say something, and I'm like, you're not hearing what I'm saying, you know, and so for us to then tell each other something, and then the other one repeat back, this is what I hear you say, is this. Because we may say something, but the messaging, you know, behind what we say, or the tone in our voice, or our mannerisms, it may be received in a totally different way. And I'm like, whoa, that's not what I meant. Let me try again.
Yeah.
And so that helped. I mean, that just takes patience just to take the time to do that.
Right.
But that was something real practical
That was really good.
that really helped us.
We still do that. And the other thing I think we do is kind of a number system thing. So when you have 3 kids and ball games and school schedules and all that, and you're busy, and I have something that I need to tell him, and I'll say it, and he doesn't respond the way I think he should respond,
That happens.
or vice versa,
Yeah.
and you can get hurt. Like, I just told him this amazing thing, and he doesn't even care, and then your mind starts going, he doesn't care about me, and then you just start the spiral, but to stop, and if you feel like you're not getting a reaction, or if it's already chaos, I'll say, I've got to tell you something, and on a scale of 1 to 10, it's about an 8. So he'll stop, and then he's all
Like,
ears.
wow, this is important
This
to
is
her. I need to
important.
really dial
Yeah.
this in.
Or, hey, I got to tell you something that's bothering me, but it's kind of at a 2. It's not a big deal. So you're already like neutralizing
Yeah.
You're
the
slowing
brace.
down,
Yeah.
slowing
Just
down
to
a
say-
little bit to do that.
Okay, like she's telling me something, but it's a 2 for her, so
Yeah.
I'm not going to get offended by this because it's a 2.
Right.
So it kind of sets the tone for the
Yeah.
communication before, so you don't have to fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's really good. I've never heard the number one before.
It's helped
That's
us
really
a
good.
lot.
It's helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
I tried to start doing it with Maxon some, and he's taking it on with his ailments. So like now, if he's
Aw.
at 8 years old, he'll be like, "Oh my, does your stomach still hurt?" It's about a 4.
Aw. That's funny.
We gotta
That's
put
cute.
numbers on there. He's trying.
He's trying.
Aw,
He's trying.
That's cute.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think of any other tools that we use. I'd say those are our 2 biggest ones.
Yeah.
Okay, and this one's for the both of you guys. In what ways have you experienced God's patience personally, and how has that helped you show grace and mercy in your marriage?
Yeah, this is a great question.
Yeah.
I don't know why my mind immediately went to forgiveness whenever I read this question. That's just kind of where my mind went, because I'm like, how can I share forgiveness with other people? I can do that so much easier when I think back to all my sin, and all my shortcomings, and think about how the Lord just so freely is ready to trade my crappy, terrible sin for washed, never, as if it never happened, and he's forgotten about it. Like, wow, so I think about the patience that he's had with me in my life. And again, you have to slow down to kind of really tap into that if you're in the moment.
Yeah.
But, I just think about all the patience he has with me. And when let's say there's some sin in my life that's repetitive in some way, and I've, maybe over and over again said, like, Lord, I just really don't like this about myself, or I really don't want to do this, but I find myself doing it again.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of like, wow, but he's so patient with me, He knows that I'm doing my best. He knows that I want to pursue after him. He knows that I have flesh. I mean, until I get to heaven, he knows that that's, my spirit and my flesh are together, and it's going to be war and all the things. But I just think about, he sees me, in a way that's really, really special.
Yeah.
And so, that's just where my mind went when I read that question about, I can really share that with other people when I really stop and connect with how patient he is with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think mine's similar too, just thinking back about all of God's forgiveness and grace and the patience he's had with me. And I think back on, your life, you have a picture of how you think it's going to go, and then the reality of how it went. And
It's way better. Way better than you could have ever imagined.
way better. And in some ways it is way better than I could have ever dreamed.
Yeah.
But in some ways there's some deep disappointments and hurts.
Yeah.
That slowly had to be surrendered to the Lord. And he was there, and he was patient with me as I did that, and showed tenderness to my weakness. So being able to offer the same patience to my spouse or my children, not to
Even to
over
yourself.
spiritualize it, is a really big place of honor.
Yeah.
And I don't do it well all the time, by any means. I get reminded daily. But yes, you just touched on that, and patience to myself. I think my personality is I'm going to be way quicker to have patience with you or you than I would to myself. And that tenderness to weakness, it's for yourself as well. and just not getting stuck in that, oh, I messed up, just whatever, I'm awful, or I, why try, or I blew it, or the repair work to go back.
Yeah.
We're doing that now. Like,
Yeah.
we'll catch ourselves and apologize quickly, and then now we're trying to do that with our kids too, because Mama be yelling at the Miller house.
Every now and again.
Sometimes.
It's rare.
Yeah.
I love my kids more than life itself, but they test my patience, and I mess up daily.
Yeah.
And being able to go back and do the repair work and apologizing, and
We want to be authentic, and that
Yeah.
we're not. Why did y'all ask us to be on the Patience podcast?
Right.
Anybody that knows
Right.
David Miller, I don't know if patience is the thing, but
I always want to make the relationship bigger than the problem.
yeah, exactly.
Keep the relationship bigger than the problem. With anything, and that's
Yeah.
a great reminder.
Yeah.
So.
And I think also for the kids' point, at least when I know when my mom would get mad at me and I'm like, I definitely did something wrong. And then mom would come back to me and be like, hey, actually, like I overreacted. Like, I'm sorry. I'd be like, oh,
What a great example.
like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, okay, mom. Like,
Yeah.
I thought it was all me,
Right.
And like, I may have not been like, okay, mom, like, yeah, I forgive you. Like, I would have been like, whatever. But then when I go back, it's like, wait a second. Like, why did mom apologize? Like, why did she come back? And it made me, especially like just as a kid, stop and be like, well, this isn't what I see with everybody else. Like,
Right.
when my two little friends are fighting, they're not friends for a week and, they'll come back. But seeing that portrayed in my parents' lives, like towards me,
Yeah.
when I grew up, I got to understand it more. And it was like, wow, like they really were putting their flesh aside and were, like you said, making the relationship bigger than the problem.
Right.
But yeah, I'm sure I was gonna ask like about kids. I'm sure that definitely, like you
get
start
lots
having
of
patience
practice.
in marriage, and the kids come and it's like, oh, like now I have to learn a different level of patience.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's big, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's great. You had parents that set that example for you.
Yeah.
That's special.
yeah, it definitely is. Definitely is. Alrighty, so the last question that we have is, how would you encourage a newly married couple struggling with patience in their marriage?
Man.
I think
Where do you start?
echoing some of the things we've already said.
Yeah.
Relationship bigger than the problem, tenderness to weakness, marriage counseling.
Yeah.
For sure, cannot recommend that enough. And I like to get into community. I think that helps a lot. Multi-generational community, to learn from each other. Our brains are searching for somebody to model
Like your parents.
what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have to learn from somebody. We've had people in our life that have modeled some really great things that have helped us along the way.
Well, it depended on how you grew up.
Yeah.
You had a couple of different kinds of parents. Ones that argue, well, they weren't, they would argue in front of you, or they would retreat and do it in private. And I'm not saying one's right or one's wrong. Or they had some kind of healthy way of processing some of this stuff where their patience was able to shine through. And so depending on where you're at and all that, that carries over into how you treat your spouse in your marriage, because it's just what you know.
Yeah.
And that's normal. It's
Yeah.
very normal. But the way that I grew up, we would hash it out for 2 or 3 hours and we wouldn't leave until it was done. That's the way that we did it. Amy's family did not do that. And so, we had to learn how to then come together and do some of that.
Yeah.
For
So,
sure.
I think for me, when it comes to, developing patience, is that I had this thing of, guys want to fix things. Like, we just want to fix it, So here's a problem. Let's either wrestle it into submission or, throw some solutions at it. And, learning, how to healthily deal with a problem that normally would require a lot of patience. I had to take a real hard look at myself, because whenever I'm in a situation, whenever we were younger and going through all the things that we've had to face in our lives, I was always like, well, what's wrong? Can you fix her? can you just take care of her problem, and then that's going to make my life easier, or
That was
vice versa.
perfect.
And she was in so many ways. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing to reflect back on it, but ultimately to see myself accurately and to ask people, hey, you know, to allow myself to be known by a mentor ultimately,
Yeah.
by a mentor, an older man that could just say, hey, dude, here's all of me. Here's my good, bad, my ugly. Here's all the things, and patience being a big part of that.
Yeah.
And then allowing that to be fully known. Secrets, ugly stuff, good stuff. I mean, fully known.
Yeah.
And then allow that person to then mentor me around things like patience. It allowed me to be able to show up in a different way in our relationship, amongst the other things that we've already mentioned.
Yeah. And I think too, also, like, I wish we could have done this when we were younger. It would have been great. But a little phrase I like to remind myself of is a curious mind is a relational mind. And so get really curious with each other.
Yeah.
Because curiosity can lead to great conversation and understanding, which helps produce patience.
Yeah.
It kind of can put the lid on some bitterness and resentment and anger because you're not filling in the gaps with assigning motive of, well, he said this because of this.
Yeah.
But maybe approach it with, you know, when you said this the other day, I was really curious how you were feeling, or I was really curious to whatever. Really get curious with each other so your brain isn't jumping to the worst case scenario. So I think that that's a really great tool to start practicing early,
That is really good.
for sure.
And that can almost put a halt on the disappointment thing. Like you talk about
Yes.
disappointment. That's a
Yeah.
big one for me, definitely. Is like it may not even be that I should be disappointed. It's just like it goes straight to that. My mind is like, well, you're
Goes
disappointed.
right to
It's
that.
like, no, you
Yeah.
just weren't. Yeah. So that could definitely be a good one. I like your phrases and stuff. I feel like I should be writing all these stuff
She's
down. Like,
got
this
so
is
many,
good.
guys. So
No, that's
many.
good. That is
Yeah.
good. Do you have any ending comments or anything?
I don't think so.
Or do y'all have anything else that's on y'all's mind or anything?
No, we're just
Oh.
happy to be here.
Yeah, we're
Thanks
glad
for
to
having
share.
us.
Thanks for
Yeah.
letting us come and hang out.
Yeah.
We feel really unequipped
Yeah.
to do this,
Yeah.
but we're thankful for the opportunity.
Yeah.
I think y'all are doing a great thing.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I always say it, I feel like I say it each time, but I think it's like valuable. Like in our church, you know, y'all go to our church and stuff, and seeing us, like when we walk around, you know, we see couples, we see people and stuff, and being able to, even when we've been able to interview a lot of women on the podcast and stuff, seeing them in the church, it's like, oh, I remember their story, or I remember what they talked about, and it's like, if I struggle with that, I know that like they're there, or they've gone through this, so it encourages me that I can get through it if I go through it in my
Yeah.
life. So like now that we're able to interview these couples, I'm not married, Haley's not married, so it's like when we do get married, it's like we will be able to remember these conversations and stuff. And this like what the church is supposed to do, you know, be a community, a body of people, like
Right.
growing each other, discipling each other. And so we really appreciate y'all definitely like investing in our generation, being able to put that, because it's hard, you know, nobody's perfect and patient, so like being vulnerable and able to put that out there to help other people, I really appreciate that.
Yeah. we're
Thanks
glad-
for
glad to
having
do
us.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're welcome. Alrighty, are you closing it out?
No,
Oh yeah, you
that's
are.
it.
Yeah.
We want to thank everyone for tuning in and listening this week. And be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment. And we will see you guys next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.